I'm
Parth! Ferengi!
You are entering my dark place.
Welcome, friends, new and old. We're back this week discussing Star Trek Lower Decks, the 4th season, episode 6, entitled Parth, Ferengi's Heart Place. And before we get into it, there will be spoilers ahead. If that's not your thing, please duck out now and check back after you've seen the episode. Now, we kick off this episode with another installment of that mystery ship that's going around and destroying other species' ships, as well as possibly abducting or killing the crew. We get a little bit more context, I suppose, here for what that mystery ship is, even though we get no further revelations or anything like that, but it does tie in directly to the main story a little bit this time. It's a Ferengi vessel. This is a very Ferengi-centric episode, and the characters on the ship are talking about how Ferenginar's changed a little bit since Rom took over as Grand Nagus. We've had little snippets of it here and there, but basically since DS9, we've had very little actual stuff from Ferenginar, so it's nice to see all of that addressed here. One character on the Ferengi ship implies and actually directly references the fact that he's been in contact with someone or something who promised him great profit, and it seems to be connected to that mystery ship showing up.
Throw him out the airlock!
He told me we would make a profit!
I knew it! They're firing at us!
I suppose that could be a misdirect, and maybe the ship happened to show up and it wasn't related to what he thought was going to be the profit. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I choose to believe it was connected, otherwise this would be a pretty pointless scene to even have in the episode, but it does seem to imply that this ship is more mundane, maybe. It's not this vast, mysterious, unknowable thing from outside the galaxy, or at least seemingly so. It seems to be connected to something or someone that's ground level here in the Star Trek universe, whether that be Peanut Hamper or Agamis or someone we've met before, or something unrelated that's going to tie back later on. I'm not sure. But the fact that it's tied to this Ferengi and a profit motive now makes it seem a little less ominous because it's more tied to reality, if that makes any sense. But that wasn't the plot of the episode. The main point of this episode is our Cerritos, as well as another ship, are visiting Ferenginar to sign these documents for a provisional membership in the Federation eventually, and I kind of like that touch here. Although the episode, I believe, splinters the storylines quite a bit to the detriment of the overall episode, there's just a lot going on, and maybe that's because they didn't have full faith in the episode they wanted to tell, so they had to splinter things over various storylines. But before I get to the overall storyline, the main emotional point of this episode was kind of given to all of our lower deck characters. Now, T'Lyn was not present in this episode, which I think is kind of leading me to feel that the best episodes of this season either have or focus on T'Lyn, because this is the second episode that she's completely absent from this season. And again, this is one of my least favorite episodes of the season. Now, I'm fully willing to admit that maybe I was in a bad headspace or something. There's not much that resonated in this episode with me. The Ferenginar stuff was nice. This isn't the first time we've actually visited Ferenginar, but the imagery we got to see down there was very influenced by the time we visited it in DS9, and it was just played up exponentially because obviously in animation you can show a lot more stuff, although a lot of the things were kind of like inside jokes, a lot of the neon signs and stuff. That's par for the course for Lower Decks, so I'm not going to ding it for that. But before we actually get to Ferenginar, our Lower Deckers are tasked with a mission to go down and visit Ferenginar in order to update the field guide manuals.
Starfleet has travel guides for all habitable planets. The file for Ferenginar hasn't been updated in years, so...
For the Federation, for any visitors who want to go to Ferenginar. I thought that was a nice added touch, but it really did end up devolving into the splintered storylines with our various Lower Deckers. So the main Lower Deck storyline is Tendi and Rutherford were given the most prominent part of this. They were going undercover as a married couple. They had to go and interact on Ferenginar to play up that side of things. I don't know. It wasn't as interesting as I hoped it would be. They've been since the beginning kind of this will they, won't they couple in the background, but here it was brought to the forefront, brought out into the light, and by the end of the episode, they kind of went back into the shadows saying, we should just be friends. Things are better when we're friends. I don't know if that's going to hold. I think we'll see more complications from that later on, but if we don't, this was kind of just a a nothing of an episode. Now, a lot of the stuff there was fun. They were going undercover at this love palace. They had this Starfleet-themed restaurant on Ferenginar, like a Hard Rock Cafe or something of Starfleet stuff. Obviously, that was just for member berries and Easter eggs from a lot of Star Trek stuff in the past, but it actually conceptually made sense within the episode. And it isn't necessarily a detriment or a benefit, but the fact that it actually made sense and it wasn't just, here's 52 things you've seen in Star Trek before for the sake of it. I like that a little bit more than just shoving things in the closet and there's just a Genesis device on the shelf for no reason whatsoever.
Oh, weird. Whatchamacallit? Commercial?
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
The overall storyline with them was probably the most prominent. It wasn't the most emotionally heartfelt, and I feel like that's where it fell down. These are characters that we've kind of maybe been wanting to see evolve their relationship, and especially for Rutherford, who hasn't been given his own episode this season. Tendi has kind of grown this season, so it would have made sense for this episode to kind of show them change their relationship with each other a little bit, but it just played things to the status quo a little bit, and they went back to normal at the end without any real hint of a change, so I thought that was a missed opportunity. The Boimler storyline was played mostly for jokes. Again, he was all gung-ho to go down and visit as many places as he could, and he ends up getting taken in by Ferengi programs because that's a new thing, I guess. They don't have television like we do in the Federation, so he gets hooked on these Ferengi TV programs. It was very reminiscent of maybe a cross between, Rick and Morty's Interdimensional Cable.
Huh? Seems like TV from other dimensions has a somewhat looser feel to it.
And the Orville episode where they give the Caliban aliens all of Earth's old reality TV.
The Bachelor Duck Dynasty, keeping up with the Kardashians.
There must be 10,000 files here.
And while I thought a lot of the TV programs they showed in there were interesting in concept, none of them really stood out as being that well thought out or that funny or that engaging or interesting. So again, I thought that was just another missed opportunity. And then we had Mariner going off on her side quest on the planet to meet up with an old friend, and she's kind of going through this existential crisis that it kind of seemed like she had already grown past a couple of episodes ago in this season, where she's dealing with the fact that she's promoted and she was self-sabotaging, blah, blah, blah. It felt very much like she had already grown past that, and now she's just devolved back into that, I guess. Then she meets up with her old friend who used to kind of be like her and sees that he's changed and she's not okay with that, but she has to deal with it. I don't know. It just feels like they're pushing her back into this well a little too often this season when it seems like she's already moved beyond that and she should be progressing in the story. The main plot of this episode, as I said, was getting Ferenginar into the Federation, at least provisionally, and that was where we got our cameos of Rom and Lita. It was nice to have them back in the show, but overall, I don't know, it just didn't accomplish that much. It was an interesting concept getting Ferenginar into the Federation. It was an interesting way to do it by kind of messing with the status quo of how the Ferengi operate, how the Federation operates, and merging those two things with Rom as kind of the intermediary. He's playing the hapless fool like he was in early DS9, even though we know he isn't that way. So again, nice to see it, but I think it just fell a little flat as far as what they could have done with it. One thing I really did like is how well Captain Freeman rose to the challenge and was able to bring these two worlds together and accomplish something that was seemingly falling apart. It's showing that she does deserve being captain. She is a competent officer, and contrary to maybe Season 1 Captain Freeman, she was able to do something a regular Galaxy-class captain or one of the better ships could have done. So she isn't just this low-end captain. She is capable, and she could potentially captain something better than a California class. And I know we've kind of moved beyond that in the show, but it definitely is engaging to see her evolution into something a little more than a cartoon character, which is funny considering this is an animated show. Overall, I thought it was a fine episode. Definitely not a standout for the season. There were a few good moments, but it just kind of fell flat as an entire episode, if that makes sense. What did you think of it? Was this one of your favorite episodes? Did you like seeing Ferenginar? Did you like seeing Rom and Lita back? Do you think the information we learned about that mystery ship at the beginning actually get us closer to an answer, or are they going to keep dragging us along? Did you miss T'Lyn? Leave all of that down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all those YouTube things. But until next time...
I swear I had nothing to do with this.